to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd.
Hello, I'm Gordon Olson, Grand Rapids City historian. One of the more interesting aspects of my job is talking with local residents and hearing from them stories about Grand Rapids' past. One of the interesting themes I've talked about recently and heard about is a successful baseball franchise that was here in Grand Rapids between 1945 and 1954. It was the Grand Rapids Chicks of the All-American Girls Baseball League. They won a championship in 1947, another in 1953, and in other years they were in the running at the end, played in the playoffs. They were a good team. The story actually begins in 1943. There was concern at that time that President Franklin Roosevelt was going to cancel Major League Baseball because of World War II. Philip Wrigley of the Chicago Cubs and other owners of Major League Baseball decided they had to do something to fill their ballparks. And so they hit upon the idea of having women play during the summer instead of the men. At first, the game was going to be softball. And in the first year, the Chicks were not in Grand Rapids, but in Milwaukee. Then, slowly, the game changed. From pitching underhanded, they went to throwing sidearm, until eventually they threw completely overhand, and they went from using a ball about the size of a softball right on to the end. The ball got smaller, and it was like a baseball. In fact, it was a baseball at the end of the league. The women played hard, despite the fact that rather than having uniforms similar to the men's, they had to play in skirts. They slid into the bases, they dove after the balls, they argued with umpires just as the male counterparts did, and they played before sizable crowds. In Grand Rapids, it was not unusual to see crowds of as much as 3,000 to 5,000 people turn out for a Chicks game. And in fact, on one occasion during the playoffs, 10,000 people crowded into Old South High Stadium to watch the Grand Rapids Chicks. In the league's best year, nearly 1 million people turned out to watch women's professional baseball. By the 1950s, though, it was all over. It succumbed to the challenge of Major League Baseball in the post-war years and competition from families who took to their cars and went on long motor vacations rather than staying closer to home during the summer. And of course, there was the competition from television. With me today are several members of the Grand Rapids Chicks to talk about those years in Grand Rapids when we had a professional baseball team here. On my far right is Marilyn Jenkins, who began playing with the Chicks in 1952. Marilyn was a catcher, played for 3 years, although her association goes back much further. She was a bat girl first. Next to Marilyn is Erlene Riesinger, better known as Beans, or Beansy, by her teammates. She played with the Chicks from 1949 to 1954, an outstanding fastballing pitcher. On my immediate right is Dottie Hunter. She was the chaperone of the Grand Rapids Chicks from 1944 until 1954, although she too began her career as a player in 1943 with the Racine Bells. On my left is the rookie of the group, Rosemary Stevenson. Rosemary played 1 year, 1954, as a teenaged outfielder. Next to her, Dolly Konwinski. Dolly began playing with the Chicks in 1950. She was a second and third baseman, and today she is a Michigan high school umpire. And on my far left is Joyce Ricketts, who played as an outfielder with the Chicks in 1953 and 1954. Joyce had been a professional softball player for several years in Chicago until she was finally convinced to come to Grand Rapids and play with the Chicks. She established in those 2 years she played here a reputation as an outstanding slugging outfielder for the Women's Professional Baseball League. I'd like to start this conversation, Dottie, with you, because you represent the entire period of the league's history, from the first year that they brought the league together until the last year here in Grand Rapids.
Yes.
I guess what I'm interested in knowing, first of all, is what was it like that first year when they had decided to create the league and they began bringing women together to form the teams? Did they have a spring training, a tryout?
Yes.
How did they do it?
Yes. Well, first of all, they started out with scouts, sent scouts through Canada. I'm a Canadian, or was a Canadian, and that's how I got picked up, through scouts going from east to west in Canada. And they sent scouts to Cuba and all over the United States, for that matter. I think the only ones that didn't show up the first year we didn't scout was California. But anyway, it was, for me, it was, we were interviewed in a downtown hotel, and they picked several local players to come, and I happened to get chosen as one. Well, and I'm telling you, you might as well give me $1 million, because I just thought I was on my road to stardom. And so that's the way the players are found in that first year. And it was spring training. I was delegated to Kenosha to start with, and I was a little late arriving, and I can remember going down to the field house, and they were all down there practicing and whatnot, and I just felt like I was a fish out of water, you know, didn't know anybody, and all these girls were Americans, and I was a little Canadian girl. But anyway, it was a strange feeling, but a good feeling. And consequently, I got a little homesick along the road, but I got over that in a hurry, and I stayed the whole 12 years. So that's sort of what it was like.
Okay. Did they bring all the players together and then divide them up into teams that first spring?
Yeah, I came late, so we had to go to Chicago, and they delegated where you should go, what team. And I went with a very good girlfriend of mine that also played ball in Winnipeg, and she was relegated to Rockford, and I had to go to Kenosha, and we almost cried because we got separated.
Sure.
Anyway, but that was the feeling that you got when you first came.
But you were off on an exciting adventure.
Adventure, you bet. It was the greatest thing.
Do you remember the first game, what the crowd was like, and the town? Was the town excited when the team?
It was. It was a good beginning. Yes, we had lots. They had lots of publicity before they started, you know, and the first year was come see, come saw, you know, because they only had the 4 teams, you know, South Bend, Rockford, and Kenosha and Racine. And so consequently, it hadn't reached its potential at that time. But each year it got better, and the game changed, you know. And
how about some of the rest of you and how you learned about it? Beansy, where did you learn about the All-American Girls League and the chance to play in it?
Well, I'd go down to the grocery store and read the sports from the Daily Oklahoma newspaper, and that's
You
where I read
lived in
about
Oklahoma?
it. Yeah, I was from Hess, Oklahoma, and I would always read the sports, and I was always a baseball player in school and everything. But you know, back then girls couldn't play with the boys on real games. So then I heard about it, and they were coming from Cuba that year, coming up from the south, and playing a benefit game in Oklahoma City, and that's how I. And then I wrote the sports writer, and he sent my card or letter or whatever it was on to Chicago, and then they contacted me, and that's the way it went.
You had a tryout?
Yeah, in Oklahoma City.
And they invited you to come out? And
Yeah.
what was your first team?
Springfield Sallies.
Okay.
And that was in Springfield, Illinois. First year, 1947, they wanted me to go to Rockford, and I got borrowed the money, went on the train to Chicago, and I got homesick and turned around and went back home. Then I had to pick cotton again to pay off the bank loan. So I made it in 1948, and that was the good part.
And in '49, you came to the Grand Rapids Chicks and played there.
Yeah.
yeah, she's still in Grand Rapids too.
Some of the rest of you had different experiences altogether. Marilyn, I know yours was different. You're from Grand Rapids, or you
Right.
were in Grand Rapids originally.
Right. I happened, where I lived in 1945 when the Chicks first came to Grand Rapids was just about a block from Southfield. And as I recall anyway, my father noted that there was a girls' team coming, and he suggested that maybe I go over to Southfield and see if I could get a job doing something. So I did that. I think the first thing I did was pick stones out of the diamond when they cut the diamond at Southfield, and then cleaned up under the bleachers, which was great fun because you found money. I'm only about 8 or 9, 10 years old at this time, and then I became Batgirl.
Did all the teams have Batgirls rather than
I believe they all
Batboys?
did have Batgirls, right?
Yep. Okay.
She was only 11 years old when she was a fat girl. She went to town.
And I was telling Dottie earlier today when we were looking at the pictures you had that at the first year, I believe they wanted me in some form of uniform, and they put me in a gray skirt and a red sweater, and I suffocated in that red sweater all summer long. And then I think the next year they got a regular uniform.
Yeah.
So that you didn't have to wear quite so uncomfortable
Right.
clothes. Well, let's switch a little bit. Some of the rest of you, you all have, I think, different experiences about how you got into the league. how about you?
Well, again, like Beans, I played ball as a youngster in the Upper Peninsula.
Okay.
And in the back of a rule book, there was a name and an address about the professional women's baseball. So I wrote them a letter, and they were going to have a tryout in May in Battle Creek, Michigan. So I came down and tried out. There was 106 of us girls showed up from the Midwest, and 6 of us were chosen. And I went back. That was 2 weeks before I graduated from high school, and I graduated on Thursday night. Saturday, I was playing ball in Grand Rapids.
Pretty excited kid about that
I was,
point.
yeah.
Dolly, how about you?
Well, I'm from Chicago.
Ah, you were playing softball before?
No, I was playing, it was the all-star team, and we had a little league, but it was kind of the minor league of the All-American. And they had tryouts to go up to the majors. We all considered it the majors. Well, I tried out, but I wasn't good enough to be put on a team, but there was going to be a barnstorming team in '49. So my mother and Dad, we got on the L, you know, the L in Chicago.
Sure.
Went downtown and signed a contract so I could play on that barnstorming tour. 10,000 miles in 3 months. Ooh, I think we visited Beansy's hometown. we were all over the place. And then at the end of that year, I went with South Bend, and just like the major leagues, I was traded to Grand Rapids.
Okay. That's something I want to talk about a little bit later, is if it was like the majors in that way, if you were traded around the same way, if they had waiver rules and all that sort of.
I don't know about the waivers, but you were just traded. You packed your bags and it was adios.
No money involved either.
No money. It was usually for players.
Yeah, back and forth.
Grand Rapids needed an infielder, South Bend needed a pitcher, and here I was the rookie.
There you go.
Well, when they expanded to 10 teams and they had to have players for these extra 2 teams, that's when our better teams, like the Chicks, we had to give up 2 or 3 good players, you know, which kind of was rough. Nobody liked that too well.
So they went through expansion just like the major leagues have over the years, with essentially the same kind of rule. The good teams had to give up a few players.
Yeah.
Were the teams allowed to protect a few players during expansion?
Well, I guess if you raised enough cane, maybe you could. I don't know. Sometimes we won, sometimes we didn't in that department.
Joyce, how about you? How'd you get involved in the league?
Well, I started out in the professional league, softball league in Chicago.
Okay.
And Woody English managed one of those teams, and he remembered me from there, and they needed, I think it was when Connie retired.
Connie Wisniewski.
Right. They needed an outfielder, so he came down and got me. And that's how I came up
So
here.
you hadn't at that point really planned on getting into the league. You were playing softball.
I was playing professional softball
And
in
here
the
was a
National
chance.
League. Yeah.
Did you like the change?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was a better form of game for you.
Oh, yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Well, to play, it's better.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was better to watch or not, but I
He was
really...
famous for hitting home runs over the factory roof.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I went back and I couldn't do it today. It's a long ways away.
As the game changed, and I know that one of the things that happened is you start out with a ball the size of a softball. It was a softball. You start out playing softball the first
12
couple.
inch.
Yeah, the regular softball. Then you went to a smaller ball, and ultimately to a baseball. At each step of the way, is that the sort of thing that the players approved of? Were the players part of the reason that you switched more and more towards baseball, do you think? Any of you?
I think the owners wanted baseball.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
And,
think they thought it would be more of an attraction than
Right.
regular softball. There's so much softball being played, but ladies playing baseball was a different story.
The game was a pitcher's game with,
Yeah.
With the big one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
and
And you get a
There weren't a
baseball
lot.
like this
yeah,
one,
and
which
as
is
it-
where
and then see when it
basically-
went sidearm, it got smaller,
Yeah.
Okay.
and then overhand smaller, ending
Okay.
up with Yeah, I noticed my printing on it.
Aha, that's an autographed ball. And this one, Beansy, you brought this along today. This was the ball you ended up with in the last year in the league. And it looks like it's just a slightly
No.
bit bigger ball.
No.
This is the one we ended up with.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so there's another
That's
step
right.
in the evolution
Yeah.
to get to the,
This is 10,
Yeah.
this is 9.
yep, okay.
Are you saying they could curve and drop them better
Yeah,
in
right,
softball
right.
than
Although
they
those
could curve in baseball?
pitchers with that softball, they had some real drops and rises back
Oh,
in
yes.
45, 46.
That's neat.
Today, the college gals could throw that riser and drop. I umpired some real fast pitch and marvelous pitchers, and they could make that ball dance.
Right. Gordon, I think that they changed that ball to liven up the league and
game,
to get a different component.
Yeah.
The smaller ball is going to go farther if you hit
Right,
it.
because you remember how they had to back up, they built a fence at south field and left field, and then with
Yeah.
the bleachers out there with Dollard Jarvis,
Yeah.
and the balls were sailing over them, and it was to enhance the game, to bring
Okay.
the people, more people out. Softball wasn't that unique. I mean, women had played softball, but they wanted to bring a different game.
Here they were playing baseball.
Right, and they had the women that
yeah.
could play it. They could
Yeah.
make the changes
Yeah.
with it.
Okay. Just some sluggers?
Well, I
right
just
there.
told you, one there.
Right there. Another one right here, too. Rosemary, too. She could hit a ball. She still
So-
can. She hit one last Saturday.
Out of the park.
No, not out of the park, but about took the first baseman's arms off. Wasn't that you?
That's sometimes even more
And Dolly?
satisfying.
And you were terrified. You were at second base.
No, I kept yelling, make her pop it up, make her pop
How about any of the rest of the equipment? We know the ball changed significantly over the years. How about the bats that you use? Are they standard, just regulation wood baseball bats?
Right.
Different lengths.
Yeah.
The
Ounces.
classic major league bat.
Okay.
I remember
Whatever it was.
going down to the Vim, and they had the scale there. You know, we
the
bought
Vim-
off
the Vim-
the Vim Sporting Goods.
Okay.
Right on Monroe, right
Okay.
off Division. We'd have to go down there, and Zig said, "Oh, I want this ounce." Somebody'd say, "I need this ounce." Well, just give me anything. Now, how about the length, Dolly? Oh, give me a short one. Anything to get around on those fast pitches.
Yeah, I would think if it was a lot of it was a pitcher's game, that a lighter, shorter bat was probably what you needed more often to get around. I'm not.
We all had our preferences.
Yeah. Just like anyone else who picks up a bat.
Right.
Some people like one of the thicker handle and
Right.
some a thinner
And
handle.
I like the thin handle,
Yeah.
but
So you can
with a
whip
bigger knob.
it more when you swing.
I can remember Doris Satterfield. She had the longest. She and Connie
I think
used
34, 36
oh,
inches.
they used the longest bats on the club. And we weren't allowed to touch them either. You were too little.
Rookie, stay away from my bat.
Exactly. Oh, speaking of rookies, I joined the team in French Lick, Indiana. And I came in late at night, so there was a room. I joined the team at the breakfast table. And this gal across from me was saying, "Boy, wait till that Nemec gets here. She's a rookie. Just wait till she gets here. She's going to shine every shoe on this club." And I'm sitting there eating. She didn't know I was sitting
You were
across
already
from her.
there.
I was there. And I kept thinking, 1, 2, 3, how many pairs of shoes do I have to shine tonight?
Do you remember who it was?
Ziegler.
Was Zig?
It was Zig. She was telling everybody, wait till that gal gets here. Just wait, boy, we'll put her to work.
Oh, yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
Ziegler had something of a reputation on the team.
Well, she was a captain the whole time,
Okay.
from the Milwaukee days right till the end.
She played the whole
Yeah.
time. Okay. And I think one year she was. I don't know if you had a most valuable player award for the league, but something similar to
got-
that at
yeah.
least. And she got
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
She was a.
She could pitch, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
yes.
was.
Yeah, pitched, played second base,
Yeah.
Who's the leader of the team?
and
I think?
regarded as something of a spark plug, I think,
Right.
Yeah.
by the
Gabby.
That's
Gabby?
Gabby. Everybody called her Gabby.
Gabby and
the nick.
Well, she was a Gabby.
Yeah, the nickname says it all sometimes.
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
it
it?
right.
does. It does.
The uniform was also just a little bit different, even from what professional softball players were wearing, wasn't it? Wasn't at least the skirt aspect of it pretty unique
thing.
for the league?
when I played professional softball, we had a pair of shorts, with a blouse. And if it was, I forget how cold it had to be, but we had long pants also.
If it got cold enough.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But it had to be a certain degree before we could wear those. So there was no skirt, it was just short.
The reason we got skirts and dresses like that, they were trying to make the game extremely feminine because they didn't want to, you know, rough and tough girls hanging around the ball field. They wanted it to be a ladylike game and yet play a men's game. So, of course, that's why there was a lot of designing went into those uniforms. And
The uniforms were the same for each team,
Yes.
except they put
Different colors.
the different colors, and then they put the city seal, I think, for each of the teams right on the front of the uniform. Isn't that correct? Grand Rapids, was Grand Rapids always red?
No,
No,
that's not the real
blue
Grand
and
Rapids.
gray.
It's white. It was white at home and gray on the road.
how's
but
our song go?
Bigelow Field's fire in 1952 wiped out the uniforms,
That's right.
and then we borrowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those were Springfield, or weren't they? Or Peoria.
Okay, so the last couple years, Grand Rapids played
Right.
in the red
Yeah.
uniforms.
Right.
but
We started out with purple.
Purple.
Sure, but I remember, and they had
After
those
the
big,
fire, you mean?
after the fire,
Yeah.
big skirts, and they were long, and it was awful.
God, they must never used those then, did they?
We used them in Kalamazoo that night, right after the fire, when we went to
Where
play
did they
there.
come from? You don't remember?
I don't have any idea, but they were purple, I remember.
Couldn't wait to be rid of those. Yeah, there was a time, if I remember correctly, in about 1950, 51, right in there, when the Grand Rapids team was in serious financial trouble.
Right.
They even had a fundraiser in the community to raise enough money to keep the team.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
sort of the way it was those last few
That
years.
was about
right.
53.
And then the fellow
53.
who had the Grand Rapids Jets, the men's team,
Jim Williams.
Jim Williams,
Williams,
stepped in,
Yes.
and he became the owner of the Chicks as well.
Yeah.
And we were
Right.
moved to Bigelow
Bigelow
Field.
Okay.
But we weren't there long.
No, we
Somebody
weren't.
burned it down.
Yeah.
Bigelow Field Brewer, and then
Yeah.
you moved back to South.
Southfield.
Back to
Okay.
South.
Okay, we jump around a little bit, and maybe I should focus on just a little bit more. The fields you played on. Well, how would you describe the quality of the playing field and all of that? Were they pretty well kept fields, or did you
Yes.
run into some pretty rough fields along the way? I know minor league players, if you ask them, they will go to great length to describe the terrible conditions they have to play under. Were these
I
conditions
think
pretty
our-
good or bad?
I think our fields were manicured and taken care of.
Good.
Yeah.
I think
do.
Southfield was an excellent field, and,
Yes,
and
South.
going to South High School at that time also in Grand Rapids, that field was lying dormant until this league came in.
Well, we
and,
rebuilt
and
that
we
whole
rebuilt
street.
the
Put in
street,
that
the
new
stadium,
scoreboard.
and then they did play high school football there again.
Okay.
But that was an intimate, excellent stadium for us. Because
Generally,
the fans were close. I
Okay.
mean, they could touch.
yeah, they were right there. How many? Well, they could get as many as 5,000 or more.
Oh,
in
more
there?
than that, in that
Yeah.
47, 48, 10,
Yeah.
up when they put the bleachers in left field all the way
Yeah.
around through center, and with the right field bleachers and bleachers going down both first base and third base, I think they pushed 8 to 10. I think you can find headlines in the Herald that'll tell you
So
that.
it was a popular sellout
It was
crowd
popular
at
back
that
in
point.
those days.
Yeah, that's great. About how far back were the fences generally in around the league? Do you have any recollection?
I think there were 300. weren't
The
there?
outfield fence?
So you had to.
Yeah.
They weren't cutting you any slack
No.
as far as how far you had
I
to.
would say that South was the shortest right field.
Right field, south.
I was going to say, I looked at an aerial view, and it looks like part of South, they had to move it in, a little bit like Fenway, even with a high
Well,
fence.
South had that Doler Jarvis building
that
problem there.
fence
see,
there,
so
yeah.
Right field was short.
Right field was
Right.
short. Were there any other fields around the league that had sort of special idiosyncrasies like that that you had to be aware of when you were playing there?
Kalamazoo, as I remember, had boards. Am I right?
Right, and yeah, they had boards painted.
A board
Right.
fence all the way around the
All the
outfield?
way around there.
Right, and they had the advertising. We didn't have that at Southfield.
South Bend
typical.
was in the middle of a racetrack.
Yeah.
So for us to
Yeah,
get,
that's right.
at Playland Park,
All right.
so for us to get there, it was a hot day walking across the blacktop,
Oh, gee.
getting in the dugout, picking the
Right.
tar out of your spikes. But we were right in the middle of that racetrack.
I remember it was a pass ball at South Bend, went forever behind you. It
Right.
got by you. Remember?
Right.
The backstop was a long
Oh, it
way
was
back?
a long ways back, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's some major league parks like that today
Right.
where you don't want the ball to get rolling
No.
around in the field because it takes a long time to track it down.
Well,
There were some other differences between Major League Professional Women's Baseball and the men's game. Maybe one of the most interesting is that you had to travel with chaperones the whole time. Dottie, you were a chaperone. What was your job?
She had the best job of any, and she was the best chaperone.
Oh,
Must have been
thank you.
good that you were there
Thank
the
you.
whole time.
Yeah, I was there the whole time. Well, the only place I had any say was in the clubhouse. I could really rule with an iron hand there. But once they got outside that clubhouse, they all went their separate ways, and it was pretty tough to keep track of them.
But your job was to keep track of the whole team, right?
Yeah.
You were supposed to know where they were all
Yes.
the time, right?
And I did. Sometimes they got away from me. Yeah, but anyway, I had lots of luck with the girls. They were a good bunch and cooperative, mostly cooperative, and they got along real well.
How big was the team? I didn't think to ask that. How many
Well,
players?
we had most we had at one time was 20,
Okay.
but usually around 18, you know, and then towards the end we got down, I think, to about 16 or 17.
That meant that you had to, at least several of you had to be able to play more than one position. If you're going to do any substituting at all,
Well,
you've got to move players around a little bit.
We had to sometimes, like when you had we had Zig that played second base. She could go in and pitch
Okay.
too. See, and so things. Most of the gals could play two positions, you know.
yeah.
So
Yeah, you were second base, third base. Marilyn, you were a catcher. Other
Catcher.
positions too?
Oh, I
Well,
think I
most-
played my first game in center field.
Yeah.
yeah.
Great way to break in when you're a catcher.
Most
And
of
the first
pitchers
pitch.
went the full 9 innings too. I mean,
Yeah.
there wasn't any of that nowadays. If you go 6 innings, you're wonderful.
In the
You didn't have a lot of relief pitchers to back you up?
Well,
We
in
had
the
some,
beginning,
but-
we had about 5 pitchers, I think, on the roster, 5 or 6 pitchers.
But
These
they cut
gals
that
could
down.
But that's
double
all they-
hitters, and their arms
Yeah.
were all right. That
But
was
that's
the
all they
difference.
did was pitch.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
we,
right.
we had pitchers, we had catchers,
Yeah.
infielders, and outfielders.
Okay.
At the beginning.
Did you also have something close to the designated hitter?
No.
No.
Okay, I was trying to understand that. You had a rookie rule for a while, and I couldn't quite understand because it seems to you were required to have a rookie on the team in the field
At all
yeah,
times.
right.
at
In
all
the lineup.
times. And I couldn't understand in reading about the rules whether that rookie had to also bat their position or
Right.
not. They did have to. Okay, so
They were worried about having enough players.
and that's how they built up
They build up
players for the
experience.
future was to make sure that you played a rookie.
I don't. That rule seemed to have come and
Did
gone.
the rule work, or
I
did it
don't
seem
know.
to?
I don't
I
remember
don't
that.
remember it when
I
That's
think that
something
was
I
sort
don't
of
remember
a
either.
figment of somebody's imagination. I don't know if that was really
thinking-
enforced.
Yeah.
Remember?
It was enforced, but
Was that the whole time?
not the whole
No,
time.
at the end.
At
That-
the end,
see,
when
that's all
players were
part of
getting
the-
scarce.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, so one of the, and we'll get to that in a little bit, what happened at the end, but one of the reasons was that there weren't enough players anymore, there were fewer players.
We should have had a farm.
They didn't.
Team,
They
but not
weren't. They
farm
weren't
team.
scouting anymore.
No.
Yeah.
They-
There were rules about, well, how these players were supposed to dress when,
Oh, yeah.
when they weren't playing.
Yes, yes.
And
yes.
even rules about how they cut their hair, right?
Well, we didn't want a boyish haircut, let's
Uh-huh.
put it that way, you know, but so that they look feminine, you know, and
Is-
so we enforced that as much as you could.
That had to be
Sometime-
uncomfortable for the players. You'd want your hair as short as possible, otherwise that.
Especially when you had to wear a cap all the
Yeah.
time and everybody wanted your hair to look beautiful, well, wouldn't have hope. Yeah. Yeah, I played ball, so I know, and I had long hair, oh man.
You had hair way to your waist, Daddy, when you were a chaperone.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Oh, so,
I
It was
think
hard.
a lot of the gals wore pigtails.
Right.
yeah.
That would be one way to
One
get
way to do
around
it.
the problem.
Teeny was famous for hers.
Teeny
Pictures, yeah.
and Dottie Schroeder
Schroeder,
and
yeah.
Bittner, Janie Bittner.
Yeah, hers
A lot
went
of
real
them
long.
pigtails or longer hair. Yeah. In the publicity about the league, they at least suggested that they even in the earlier years at least sent you off to charm school or brought someone in to show you
Yes.
how to put your makeup on or things like that. Was that something done just for PR or
No,
was that
that
really
was-
a part of the whole league scheme?
In the beginning, that was a part of the scheme. That was to teach these girls, a lot of the girls, you know, when you're out playing that game, it's tough. And a lot of them didn't pay attention. They didn't wear rouge and lipstick and
There
all
were
that.
just kids,
junk.
Daddy, coming in at the beginning.
That's
Just
right.
Kids.
And so,
Kids and-
Wrigley and his outfit decided to have a charm school director come in, and I guess we had 2 or 3 sessions at spring training was where it started, and taught these girls how to put on makeup, how to do their hair and all that jolly stuff, and what to wear to look feminine. And I think that lasted about 2 years, and that was the end of that. It was up to me after that. And
And you did it.
well, don't look at how nice looking they are.
I think you've done a splendid job as far as...
Oh, boy.
Into all this, though, another seems like almost idiosyncratic sort of thing. They decided that all the managers had to be men.
Yes.
What? Anyone know why that
It was
was?
the 40s.
Okay, that's explanation enough.
Well, I think it was wise
Yeah.
decision to have men as a chaperone, as a manager,
Yeah.
and they tried to pick retired ball players, you
Okay.
know, big league ball players, like Max Carey and
Yeah.
Didn't Jimmy Fox play?
Jimmy
Jimmy
Fox.
Jimmy
Fox.
Fox was a manager at one point, well-known.
Yeah,
right?
and Johnny
Yeah.
Rawlings
Johnny
and-
Rawlings from
Dave
was the grand-
Bancroft.
Dave, what was his name?
Elwood,
Yeah.
Woody.
Yeah.
Johnny Rawlings was the Grand Rapids manager for quite a while.
Yes.
Was he a good manager?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Tough, but
Tough
good.
manager?
Yes, tough.
He was tough.
Good.
You could learn a lot.
And he-
Yes.
As far as he was concerned, you were ball players and not women
That's
ball
it.
players, right?
We were ball players.
Yeah.
There was no
We were there to
gender
play ball. You
there.
were getting paid to play ball, and so you were going to play ball.
Okay.
He threw his hat down and jumped on it in the dugout.
Oh, yeah.
And who taught you to play ball? And then the next time he was complimenting you on a nice play.
So he pushed it real hard.
He did.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
A little bit
that's
about,
fine.
well, a couple more things, and then I want to talk about how the game was played. Let's talk about pay for a second. Did you play it for the big money? Sign the big contracts?
I got $65 a week, and I was in a pear tree.
Did you get expenses beyond that?
We got $3 a day on the road.
Yeah.
$3 a day meal money plus our hotel.
Okay.
And when we were at home, we were on our own.
Okay. Where did you stay when you're in Grand Rapids?
Private homes.
Private,
Okay.
That's another one of my duties.
Was to find a place for them all this time? Check it out, make sure it was a good place?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I must say, most of the girls were in good places.
Sure.
Some women, some of these older ladies that took these girls in almost treated them like their own daughters, you know, so
Yes.
it was nice.
That was
Yes.
a
Yeah.
good.
That was a real community attachment.
How'd you travel when you went on the road? By bus, train?
Division Avenue bus. No, Scout's Honor. They had 2, didn't they? Didn't Division Avenue have 2 luxury buses? And one was ours. What- No, we had Division Avenue first.
By plane one year.
Oh, really?
Oh, before me?
Okay, that was in the beginning, around 45, I think it was 45 or 40, 45 we came to Grand Rapids, 46 we were traveling by plane.
Wow. That
Remember the old Capital Airlines?
Sure. Flew in and out of the airport.
Madison
Yeah,
Avenue,
was you
right
in the
on
war?
Madison.
Flew us over to Rockford
Yeah.
across the Big Lake and
Yeah.
Plains for a playoff.
I
For
know
the
one.
playoff.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know one time coming back, you know, sometimes you could, during war years, you know, you got bumped off a plane.
Oh, sure.
Easy as that. And many times I got bumped off in Muskegon.
And then it was up to you to get
but
back
I
to
had to
Grand
get off the plane because I didn't play ball. See, I was a chaperone, so that's...
And there went your
and
team
every
and-
time somebody mentions Muskegon, forget it.
You don't want any part of that anymore. Most of the players were single. Is that correct? But there wasn't.
When they started out.
Let me rephrase that. Was there a rule or any effort that said they had to be single? Anything like that?
No.
They were married and single players right from the
Yeah.
beginning.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Tougher question. This happened at about the same time that Major League Baseball finally integrated, and there were some black players in Major League Baseball. Jackie Robinson is 1947, I think.
I saw him play, yes.
Yeah. Was the women's league integrated? Was there an effort to? Do any of you remember anything about that?
Well, there wasn't enough.
You know, that
Players.
was something that we didn't pay much attention to
Yeah.
and didn't think. I think there were some efforts to. I don't recall that it happened, though, did it?
I don't think they
No.
were interested.
No, I don't
like
even
today.
remember anyone coming to try out or
May-
We just
maybe-
had the Cuban gals.
Okay, so there was.
well, you know, we went on a tour of South America with a Cuban team and an American team, the Cubanos and the Americanos.
Uh-huh.
And I happened to go on that tour, and they had all of the girls that went, the Cuban girls that went, had played in the All-American League, and they were good players, and they played against the Americanos, and half the time they were winning, they were beating us. It was a terrible situation. Anyway,
Didn't take the trip again the next year then?
no.
No, we brought them up to play, right?
With us.
Yeah,
1949.
and that's just like the major leagues, the men's major leagues did too. They went down there, got beat a few times, and decided
Right.
they could use a few of those
Yeah.
those South Americans in the
Right.
big
They are
leagues.
good
Yeah.
ball players, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How about the game itself and how it was played? Well, let's start at the beginning. Pre-game, pretty much the same as you would if you walked into a major league ballpark
Same.
today. Warm up,
Same.
batting
Same.
practice, the
Same.
whole works. The national anthem,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
and play ball.
Pepper game.
Pepper
Pepper
games.
games.
Right.
Do you remember during the war we had to make a V when they sang
Yep.
National
Start-
anthem and
National
sure.
anthem
In
with a
fact,
V.
if I remember correctly, the singing of the national anthem at baseball games in general starts as a result of the war.
Yeah.
And so you were a part of that, just like in Major
Right.
League Ball. Okay. The game starts. What kind of game is it? Is it more of a pitcher's game than you might see at a Major League ballpark today, a men's ballpark today? Was it a lot of strategy, bunting, stealing, that sort of thing?
I
How
think
would you characterize it?
I would characterize it as basic baseball.
Okay.
Today, in fact, last night, George Bell couldn't bunt. You know, he's a home
Never
run
has
hit.
been able to, as far as I
But
know.
they needed a run,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't bunt. But we had to know how to bunt,
Okay.
hit and run, take two and hit to right. That's just that's an old joke. There were double plays, double steals. There was all basic baseball.
So maybe characterized as more strategy than a fan would see going into a men's Major League ballpark
Right.
today. A lot more chance
Right,
to...
except Billy Martin was the man of basic baseball.
Okay,
You know,
sure.
the stealing of home, double steals, bunting, hit and run, the fun part of baseball.
Joyce, you came out of out of softball. Was there an adjustment to make in that way between the way the two games were played?
No, not really.
Softball, you can't
it-
lead off. I know
Well, right.
it's that sort of
right.
thing. So there's
That's true.
yeah, but
But other than that, it was just about the same. I was worried about it to begin with,
Sure.
but it's such a nice game that
you
George
adjusted,
blended in very well.
she adjusted quickly.
Yeah.
Very well, right. And she was one heck of a ball player.
Yeah.
Beansy, how about pitching? You were a pitcher. Did you throw the same kind of the curveballs, the change of pace? The various pitchers?
said I didn't have a curveball.
Did we hear the story?
I had a fastball.
You relied on a
My
fastball.
dad taught me how to throw. He never would let me throw sidearmers all overhand because he was a semi-pro first
Uh-huh.
baseman.
Okay.
So I never could have made it before night. So it's a good thing I turned around and went back home in
first-
1947. I never made it because I
You had
can't
to wait-
run. So pitching was it. So
You had to wait until they were throwing overhand before
Right.
you could come into the league.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
She had a hopping fastball. She had an excellent
Yeah.
fastball.
A little motion on that fastball when it
Oh,
came
yeah,
Jump
lots of
in.
motion, but she did have really kind of a rinky-dink curve.
in? Well, you were a catcher.
But
You
it
would
was
know
a
that
good
sort
change
of
of
thing.
pace anyway.
I had a good high and tight pitch.
Yeah,
They better be
right.
loose.
I was going to ask. I was going to ask about that. Part of the game, the way it is played, is if the batter gets a little close. If they've done particularly well against you earlier in the game, you try to keep them loose in the batter's
you
box.
brush
You
'em
don't want them
back.
digging in too much. Did you do
And
that?
the girls expected that. They didn't
Yeah.
go running out the mound and charging you if you give them a high and tight pitch. I think I get so angry when I see that in men's baseball today. I think stand up there and hit the ball.
Yeah. They knock you down, get up, and hit the next one back at them.
Right, I think that's
They
I
want-
tacky.
think for $3 million, we would have.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They want the whole batter's box, and the poor pitcher has no choice.
Yeah.
And if they brush him back, they want to beat up on him.
They want to fight. That's
Yeah.
just part of the
Yeah.
game. I'm like Al Kaline. He gets angry at that,
Yes, he
too.
does, yes.
And Canseco's the worst.
Yeah.
Is
Yes.
It is a changing game, no doubt about that. How about the play at second, double play ball? You take out that second baseman?
betcha.
You bet.
You get taken out?
Yep.
See, you were
I was an outfielder.
outfielder, okay.
Well, I
You were the
have,
second
I have some scars.
Yeah.
Sophie Curries was one of our outstanding base stealers. And they said, don't be afraid of her. Don't be afraid of her. Marilyn, get that ball right on the money because I'm not going to move my glove this way. It's going this way.
And you don't want to spend a whole lot of time in there waiting either, do you?
No, no.
So they weren't afraid to take you out on the double play?
Nope.
The whole works.
Ziggy got accused of throwing at somebody on purpose, and the sports writer or whoever it was called her up on the phone. She said, listen here, I never throw it at anybody intentionally. If they don't slide, they may
Okay.
get hit.
Yeah, if you come in standing
Right.
up, you may
Take
end
the
up,
consequences.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right, because you knew better, you know better. I mean,
you could end up wearing a baseball if you weren't careful.
Right, between the eyes.
It's been known to happen. Any other aspects of it, I guess, that if, as you look back on it, that stand out as being distinctive to the way it was played as a woman, as the women's game as opposed to the men's game? Or was it basically the same game?
I don't think we compared it. I don't think we thought of it in those terms.
no,
Yes.
no, really, we didn't, because the men were playing their game and we were playing our game, and that's the way it was. And we never competed with each other either.
Grand Rapids outdrew the Jets a lot of nights.
Yes,
that right?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I think we played it just because we loved the sport.
Right.
We didn't compare. We just loved it.
You didn't worry about
No.
what the rest were playing. It was your game, and you played
That's
it.
right.
Sometimes it has been said in baseball that you can doctor the ball a little bit, make it do certain things. Some say that's part of gamesmanship, to find the edge. Did that happen at all in your league? Everyone looks at the pitcher to see if she wants to confess to anything at this point.
Not really.
I heard
You can tell tales now, it's too late to do anything.
Just
the
once did
statute
we
of
do it.
limitations has run out, you're safe.
I always wondered about Fout.
Yeah.
Jeannie
they-
Fout.
Oh,
Jeannie Fout was a pitcher,
Pitcher.
an outstanding pitcher.
Outstanding.
I read at one
was
point
coach, I'd-
Winch, Carl Winch.
she had good breaking ball.
Yeah, but look at
Excellent pitcher, right. Excellent all-around
Mobile
athlete.
had that drop, though, and I don't think she used anything.
No,
No.
no, she
She
didn't.
just,
Were there pitchers you thought might have had a little
we didn't think about that.
foreign substance on the ball?
My batting average says yes.
I don't think so. I don't really think so.
No, I don't think so.
Gordon, those things happened in those last 2-3 years, and when everything was shaking, there was
Yeah,
nothing at the top.
No
of-
control over the lead, or not as
Right.
much control.
That's when, and
I heard a rumor that the balls might have been a little extra cold for one game.
One occasion.
I think I just heard that rumor last weekend.
Yeah? Well, you have reunions now, and some of
Right.
these things come out. You think maybe somebody stuck the balls in the ice box before
I think
the
maybe Woody had a few of them frozen once.
was that the Grand Rapids? man?
Woody.
And you're right.
He didn't tell the rest of you if he was doing this, though.
Oh, you might have told a few, like her.
Like the pitcher.
When she wore her winter gloves, you mean? That day she had her winter gloves inside of her.
But speaking of gamemanship, I think you explained that the reason that happened was, again, that time Fort Wayne was really loaded with power.
yes.
And there were a couple gals by the name of Betty Foss and Jo Weaver who were legitimate ball players, there's no question about that. But they were so awesome that you were beat before you even got to the field. And that's not a right attitude, but you faithfully, I mean,
Yeah.
truthfully, that was the
They
way.
were really
And I think we
something
did
else.
freeze the balls once.
Okay.
But I don't think it made any difference.
No, I don't think it did either.
They could hit the frozen ones, too.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, those things do happen
Right,
in the
but-
course of a game, no doubt about it. And
But see, when they tried to keep the league in balance all those years, but then again at the end, it got out of balance. There was no control, no real commissioner, and that's...
No head person
Right,
to take
right.
control.
And everybody, each little city was fighting for itself.
Yeah,
They, in fact, earlier on would reallocate some of the players each year, if I remember
Right,
correctly.
to
And I see
balance out.
You wouldn't have
Yeah.
been involved at the end in any of that, but some of... You stayed, Earlene, you stayed with the Grand Rapids, well, you
All the
moved
time.
once.
Yeah, that was the, when they had 10 teams, I was with Springfield
Okay.
Sallies.
But then that team folded. You weren't
Then I was
reallocated?
allocated to Grand Rapids because they had the best team.
Okay,
And I was the youngest, or the newest anyway.
okay. But some of the Grand Rapids players did have to move on. Ruth
Team.
Lessing. Ruth Lessing was a
Right,
catcher
I think
who had...
that they moved.
Teeny Petrus was the one that
Teeny,
broke up your
yeah.
team, and
Right,
Corky
that was-
came
That was
in.
the
Right.
biggest
Right.
breakup we had.
Right.
Because Zig and Teeny were such a good double play combination, you know, you couldn't beat them. And so when Teeny got moved, that was the end of that. Although Corky Olinger come in, and she was a good shortstop too. So, but it seemed like it wasn't quite
tradition.
as good as when Teeny was there. You know.
Are there games, plays, that sort of thing that stand out? I was looking through some scrapbooks, and I noticed that the 47 playoffs, for example, if I remember correctly, there was a 15-inning game and then a 20-inning game, all in a series of playoffs. And within your, even the years that you were with the team, games that stand out that you remember that were exceptional games all the way along?
Yes, the one in Kalamazoo.
Yeah, it's 40 degrees.
Oh, boy.
At least 40 degrees. And
Spring or fall?
it was in
Fall.
October.
October. So
September.
is this a playoff game we're
Yeah.
talking about? End of the year playoff game. What happened?
Well, Woody got kicked out. Ziggy was the manager then.
Why did he get kicked out?
Who knows? Probably
Well, 'cause
because
he
he
was
couldn't stand the
beefing.
cold. Or the heat. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know why they kicked
Okay,
him
so
out.
he's out of the
He's out of
game.
the game.
Now,
He's-
now we have an all-women's team on the field, including the manager.
So,
So the
I get-
captain took over.
I'm pitching, and Ziggy comes up to me, and they have a big mound there, and I'm tall anyway, and Ziggy's little, and she looks up at me, and she says the bases were loaded, and Sammy Sams was up, and we were ahead, barely, and she looks at me and says, well, can you get them out? And I said,
Just what a manager wants to see, a lot of confidence.
so anyway, we got her out, struck her out, matter of
Struck her
fact,
out.
and that
Won the
was that.
playoffs, that
We
was
won the playoffs.
Yeah.
53.
53.
That was the
53.
coldest game I've ever played in.
Oh, it was ice
so
cold.
cold.
Awful.
And
You
Marilyn
played-
was the catcher too, and she held on to the ball, and she was thrilled with that.
It was like, she sets this up, it was like the last inning, we were ahead by 1 run, the bases were loaded, it was a 3-2 pitch. I'm one of the best hitters in the league.
Oh, boy. It's named
And-
Doris Sams, was that her name?
Doris
originally?
Sams.
Yeah, okay.
And she wasn't going to throw her curveball, but I tell you, she blazed a fastball right by her. I don't know if I ever saw it, but it was in my glove anyway.
You held your glove in the right place, and there it was.
And that her face was beet red. And it's
You could-
beet red.
You could hear that ball hit your glove
I
clear
know.
out in the outfield.
Yeah.
It
There
was
was a
shining
little
that
something
hard.
extra on that one?
I hope so.
You have that glove.
I mean,
where
it
is
really popped.
This is the glove that
Yeah.
you were wearing then.
Oh yeah, that's my
And that
glove.
may or may not be the ball, right?
Yeah,
It's
that's
not the ball.
One like
That's
it.
not
at
the
least.
ball.
ball
It was
like
like
this.
this.
Okay, it was a real baseball at that
Yeah.
point. Well, the umpire got that one right. Oh, she swung at it.
She swung at
She
it.
swung at it. The umpire didn't have to make the call. How about the quality of umpiring that you
That
saw
went
in
down
the league?
also.
Okay, towards the end.
It really-
You're an umpire, Dolly. Make a comparison. Were they good umpires, bad umps?
I don't remember. I was paying attention to the pitchers, if they were throwing anything with velocity or grease or... I do believe we had good umpiring in the 19...
John Block.
Yes, John Block,
Okay.
And
Who was the one that...
Van Portfleet.
yes,
There were traditions in Grand Rapids.
Peg Van Portley.
Yep.
Fight with, remember?
Okay,
He
now
was
this-
the head man, but I
Yeah,
don't remember his
I
name.
Pat Kegel was a Grand Rapids player for several years. Good hitter,
Oh, famous.
Colorful.
She was a slugger.
good
yeah.
outfielder,
Colorful.
Colorful.
player.
Colorful,
and short fuse.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
very short.
Part of
Okay.
hers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blonde bombshell.
The umpires played it the way you would expect an umpire to. They took so much. If you
Right.
you stepped over the line, you're out of the ballgame,
Right, you got it.
Right,
basically.
right.
No difference there.
You could talk to him.
Yeah, that's what you said, right?
That's what you
Right.
said.
And the way you said
Oh,
it,
sure, and there were
and how much of a gesture you made at the time.
All I ever did was ask him, "Are you sure?"
Yes.
Very politely.
That was it.
Patty, when the league was strong, there were fines, there were
Yes,
suspensions, there
yes.
was,
All kinds of
Okay.
things,
Yes.
really on the ball. That's when we had all the big terrific crowds, you know,
Right.
and
How about-
things were sailing along fine.
We've covered a lot of different aspects of the game. We haven't talked about fans very much. You had good, loyal fans.
Oh, yes.
Were there
Yes.
fans that stand out that you remember who were there all the time? And I see some heads nodding. That followed the game, would come up after. Kids come up for autographs?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
You had your own following of
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Certain players had certain kids.
Yeah. And you could look forward to seeing them after the game?
Yes.
Do you remember when you signed your first autograph?
Yes, Woody put me in that first night because my mother and coach brought me down. And before they'd go back, so they get to see me play, I think he put me in maybe about an inning and a half or something like that. So,
Did you get to bat that night?
yes,
How'd you do?
I believe I struck out.
It's all right. A lot of the good ones start that way. but somebody came up after the game?
Yes, there were some kids that came up afterwards and asked for my autograph.
You were unprepared to sign out? I'm really curious. No one's ever asked me for an autograph. I don't know about these things. How do you react the first time?
Well, it was kind of new to me because I had played softball all my life, you know, and they never came up to ask for autographs, so it was something new. But, you know, because you follow the major leagues, you've seen it was expected of you, so you just signed it, you know,
Yes,
and it felt it was an honor.
The
You know?
first thing to do, sign it.
Yeah.
Keep in good with the fans.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was an honor, you know,
Yeah.
that they would ask you.
And it was, special fans then that you remember along the way?
Leon and Eva Phillips and Dr. and Mrs. Blackburn, and they
Why
came
did-
every
Who
night.
was it we used to shake hands with when we crossed home plate?
Cross home plate.
When they hand you the $5?
never got
I always used to look forward to that.
Someone, if you hit a home run, there's someone to shake your hand.
No, we owned a car place here in town.
Oh, that's where you worked, Jordan Buick. huh?
Jordan Buick.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's the
Yeah, what was
boy.
his name?
After the game, you'd shake your hand and
No, all you had to do is cross home plate and look at him, and he's up shaking hands, and when you brought your hand back, there'd be a $5 bill or something like that.
right.
Oh, yeah.
All right, good fans we had here.
Good fans.
We had a good,
Was there a fan club?
oh, surely, there was a
Yeah.
fan club, right?
Booster Club?
Yeah?
Yeah.
You were
Yeah.
expected to do things other than just
Yes.
play ball? You had to go out to make appearances?
Oh, we had
Yeah.
picnics.
Oh, yes.
We had picnics, and they always had us to their home.
We were visited every civic club in town, the Rotary
Right.
and the Exchange and
And the Penn Club and,
Silver
all
Lake
those.
Cascade
Yeah,
Country
Club.
Club, I think we,
we were really treated royally. I
Mrs.
say.
Stover took us out there for an
You had some of
afternoon.
that too?
I got on some, yes. Mrs.
Somebody
Phillips
put their
took us
hand
out
up
for,
over there.
I remember taking us to Safety's for all the ones that hit home runs.
Yeah? For you, I keep thinking about it, you were right out of high school and were right into all this. That had to be an exciting way to start out.
It was, and also kind of a shame too, because it ended up at the end of the season, you know. It was the last, in 1954, that the league folded, and I really felt bad that we didn't come back
Yeah.
to play.
Yeah, it's I think something a lot of us feel bad about, that something that was that exciting, that you obviously enjoyed that much, didn't persist, didn't carry on so that you could, and others could come after you. You know, it was a one-generation thing, and that's a bit frustrating for the rest of us to think about. Let's talk just a minute about the end of the league, that last year. First of all, as you look back on, why do you think, what was wrong? What was going wrong as far as women's professional baseball was concerned? There was nothing wrong with the game. We
No.
can start with that. It was a good game, well played. The talent was there. What was wrong?
End of the war.
Okay,
TVs, cars, boats,
They gave
cottages
all-
at the lake,
all right.
all that thing, yeah. Too many other interests.
Competition for the
Right.
entertainment dollar.
Yeah.
And they always gave their money away. They had nothing to fall back on.
Okay, so the league
Yeah,
itself was
true.
undercapitalized. They
Right.
didn't have the
Yes.
resources
Yes.
to keep going.
They
Grand
didn't
Rapids
prepare
invested
for
its
that.
money back into this community, the franchise did, and then they had nothing in the bank.
Yeah, in fact, for a lot of the years, and maybe in Grand Rapids right up to the end, it was a non-profit
Right.
operation.
Right.
And
Yes.
if there were profits,
Yeah.
they were to
The
be
Mary Free
distributed.
Bed.
Okay.
Well, remember Charlie Geringer coming in one time, we gave him 1,000, 2,000?
Yeah,
How
what did
much
we do
money?
that for?
Had to get rid of it.
I can't remember now.
I don't
And
remember
Ziggy,
either.
Ziggy presented the check, and
Right.
she never got over
But
it.
a lot of different charities benefited
Yeah.
because this
Yes.
league existed.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, several of you were on that,
Yeah.
that last team. How'd you do that last year?
I think we came out second in the
Second?
league.
Second in the league, right. We may have
Yeah.
even might have even finished up on top if we'd played, right?
Yeah, there was, and we might as well talk about it because people are going to ask. There was a little controversy right at the end of that last year, wasn't there?
Oh, yes.
You were second, there was a playoff, the first place team was
Fort Wayne.
Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne was a powerhouse.
Right. And they,
But there was an injury on the Fort Wayne team, do I have it right?
right.
Someone who was there, tell me the story.
Well, I just heard it last week again. Marilyn Jones was catching for Fort
Was
Wayne.
it, I thought it was Briggs.
No, and she was hurt. Well, she wasn't really hurt.
Ah. The
Okay.
story is one of these faked
But,
injuries.
right, and she said to me, so who was managing?
Bill Ellington.
Yes.
Wayne, all right,
How
he
can you
said,
forget?
You're hurt, shut your mouth.
Uh-huh.
Ruth Richards is coming in. She told me that on the golf course.
Ruth Richards from
Yeah.
Rockford, who was one of the best, and nobody
Yeah.
questions that. Ruth Richards,
Yeah.
wonderful gal.
Mm-hmm.
And she
Best
came
catcher in
they
the
got her
league.
to catch.
Uh-huh.
She started out here.
They essentially loaded up
Right, they loaded
Yeah.
up.
For the last game.
And who
Yeah.
knows why, that's, it's unimportant. But it was then, it was important.
So the
We
fight
took a
was on,
stand.
it was
Okay.
between Woody and Bill Ellington, wasn't it?
So the first game is in Grand Rapids,
We won that, didn't we? Right.
Yes.
and Ruth
we
Richards
played it-
played.
Right.
Right.
We played it for our fans.
And we went to Fort Wayne, and it
Yeah.
just kind of
And there she
brewed
was
up in us.
again.
There she was
Oh, yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And what happened?
And we forfeited.
That's a
And we came
forfeit.
home.
Yeah.
That was it.
We took
That
our
was
bats
it.
and
You weren't
balls and
gonna
went home.
It was
your
not
choice.
according to the rules
That's
of
right.
the league
Yeah.
to bring your
Right.
player at
But
that
there
late
was
date.
nothing, there was nobody at the top of the league that was going to enforce the rules.
That's right.
Okay.
But
No
if
comment.
you needed another player, why take the best one in the league?
Right.
Yeah.
But just Jonesy said she wasn't hurt.
So,
And we all, and
Yeah.
that's what we
She had a
felt.
cast on her
That's what we
wrist.
felt, see?
I
That's
still
how
remember
stupid
seeing
it all
that.
was.
yeah.
We took a stance. I
So
don't
the
know if I
result
would-
was, the last year,
Kinda
you
went-
finished second, you had a darn good team,
Right.
and
Yeah.
if things had gone a little differently, there would have been a playoff to decide it if
Right.
everyone had
Right.
played by the
Who
same
knows, we might have
rules.
And
won.
the chicks could have kept going as a team, too. I think we
Possibly.
could have,
Maybe
Yeah,
another
but
year,
you-
but it
you
was
were-
misery, Daddy.
Yeah,
It was
I know.
tough. It was
Yeah.
tough.
You're still drawing fans, but not
It's
as
like
many.
working
Yeah.
for a dead
Yeah.
horse, you know. It's
I think we're going to have to draw this to a close at this point. It's been great fun, and I want to thank every one of you for taking the time to come and talk about this. And I guess I want to close on a couple of thoughts for those of you watching. First of all, bear this in mind, that this was an exceptionally gifted group of athletes who played this game, the game of baseball, the American game, as hard as anyone has ever played it. And something else, I guess, before you all get away that I want to do, and that is that I want to be a fan for a minute. and if you will, while I'm saying a few words to wrap this up, I would greatly appreciate it if you would all sign a baseball for me so that I can have something to remember this splendid experience by. Will you start that up? Thank you. Well, they're autographing my baseball. Let me close with this thought. At the end of the 1954 season, the Grand Rapids Chicks broke up. And like other professional athletes, the members of the Chicks went on to other careers. Some of them stayed here in Grand Rapids, others married and moved away. But they always had the memory of having played professional baseball. Today, girls and boys often compete together in the younger years in youth baseball teams, but only the boys can dream of the huge crowds and playing one day in Tiger Stadium or in another Major League Baseball park. It doesn't have to be that way. Women began playing baseball shortly after the game was popularized in the 19th century. The Grand Rapids Chicks and other teams in the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League certainly proved that women's baseball could be both competitive and entertaining. And it's not their fault that the league folded. They played hard, they played well. If that league had succeeded, girls today could dream of one day going on to a career and pitching like Beans Reisinger, or hitting like Joyce Ricketts, fielding like Dolly Konwinski, or going from bat girl to team catcher like Marilyn Jenkins. Possibly even going right out of high school and into the big leagues as Rosemary Stevenson did in 1954. They might even dream of making a career out of professional baseball the way Dottie Hunter did. And fans would not have to drive to Detroit or Chicago if they wanted to see Major League Baseball. They'd have it right here in Grand Rapids.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball